What up boys, and welcome back to another comparison video. Last week we took a look at Poison versus Fireball and came to a conclusion on which spell you should be using in your deck. This week we're taking a look at a couple of the smaller spells known as Zap and Snowball. But before we do get into that today, please do consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already. I try to post top tier Clash content on a slightly more than weekly basis, so it might just be worth your time. Anyway, let's start off this video as all card analyses should start with usage and win rates. At the time of me writing this, Zap is actually the most used card in the game, with a 28% usage rate. However, it is tied with Miner and Barb Barrel on this percentage. Snowball is a little further down on the list at 12%, but still features in around every 8 decks. So both spells are viable at the moment, which is obviously something we do love to see. However, the win rates might explain why Zap has over double the usage of Snowball. The win rate of Snowball is at 52%, whereas Zap's is actually lower at 49%. A card under 50% win rate usually has this because it's a simpler card to use. This isn't always the case, but I believe it does apply to our Zap versus Snowball debate. Sure, less people use Snowball, but that's because it's a harder spell to use when compared to the very simplistic Zap spell. Now, we do have to talk about damage somewhere in this comparison, despite both spells having an identical damage and radius. This means that the potential damage that they output onto the board is exactly the same. A 2.5 tile radius covers around 20 tiles on the board, but none of this knowledge is actually that useful to comparing the spells, because, you know, they're the same. Alright, next category. One major difference between the two spells is the time they individually take to reach their intended target. Zap is an instant spell, and as soon as you cast it, it takes 1 second to place onto the board. Snowball, however, takes longer depending on where you play the spell. Playing it next to your own King Tower is only going to take a second, but playing it all the way on your opponent's King Tower takes a little while longer. This is a disadvantage to running Snowball, and means you have to be super careful when trying to damage units that are already moving. It's easy to mistime the placement on a Snowball, which could result in an entirely different push if you're trying to kill units with that spell. A Hog versus Skeleton army, your Hog will die before you even get time to think about it. Add in a Snowball, huge damage, but missing this is going to cost you dearly. However, luckily enough, the Snowball doesn't take that long. The newest card in Clash Royale at the moment is the Royal Delivery, a card that takes 3 entire seconds to deploy from you releasing it. With Zap, the placement is very simple. You see a troop you want to kill? Cool, select your Zap spell and zap it down. Snowball, however, is higher skill than this. There's a bigger risk with Snowball, as we discussed earlier, where you can end up missing troops and getting less value than a Zap spell would. However, there's also a higher reward factor. Unlike Zap, Snowball can be used for predictive plays. Throwing a Snowball before units are actually placed is risky for sure, but pays off tremendously when you know what your opponent is about to play. This higher risk and higher reward factor for Snowball is what makes it higher skill capped, and means that its usage rates will usually be lower than Zap. However, its win rates will usually be higher. It's a weird relationship between the two spells, but one that makes total sense when you think about it. The main noticeable difference between these two spells is most definitely their effect. Choosing between these two spells can often come down to whether you prefer a stun or a knockback. It's not very clear about looking into the mechanics of Clash Royale. I won't go into full detail in this video because it is long, but you can check out my Snowball video later if you want to understand this more. Essentially, Zap acts as a 0.5 second freeze spell. The units inside of it can't move or attack for 0.5 seconds, and this interaction is fairly simple to understand. 0.5 seconds, no attacking or moving, play resumes as normal afterwards. A knockback, however, is a bit harder to understand. When a unit is knocked back, its current attack is reset. To explain this, we'll use the example of minions. They hit every 1 second, so when they're knocked back but still in range of their target, they will hit 1 second later. The same concept goes for a Dark Gob. When knocked back but still in range of its target, the Dark Gob needs another 0.7 seconds to attack. However, these figures are skewed because the Snowball obviously does slow down the attack speed of whichever unit you're hitting. Which means if a unit is hit with the knockback of a Snowball but isn't actually affected by knockback, then its attack is just slowed by the Snowball. A good example of this is the Prince, as they'll keep attacking your push even if you hit him with a Snowball. So I guess Snowball's effect is even higher skill cap than Zap's, seeing as the timing and placement of it is harder to manipulate consistently. Another benefit to this knockback is its defensive capabilities. plays. You can see this insane ability against Balloon, a relatively slow moving wing condition that does a ton of damage if it can get to your tower. A simple air defense like even Spear Gobs can counter this 5 elixir wing condition with the knockback help of a Snowball. I did an entire video when the Snowball first came out about all of its cool tricks. I would highly recommend checking this out in the top right now if you want to know about the high risk and high reward plays you're able to pull off with this card. Personally, I think Zap and Snowball are highly interchangeable when it comes to deck building. The one thing I would say is that Snowball tends to be preference in cheaper cycle decks that need more positive elixir trades when played. Decks like Hog Rider, Expo, and Miner would all prefer using Snowball to Zap. These decks rely on positive trades to work their elixir advantages into their game for damage, and Snowball can provide more value with this over Zap when it's used properly. The usage of Snowball basically depends on your confidence with a spell, which is why the usage rates for Snowball are lower, but its win rates are actually higher. Now boys, just before we get into the outro of today's video, I have a very important announcement to make. We have our first ever channel sponsor. Let me introduce to you Geyser, a mobile gaming tournament app that allows players to find, organize, and compete in a range of mobile games. Anything from Call of Duty Mobile, to Arena of Valor, to our very own Clash Royale, to many more of course. These guys have worked with me since my streaming days in 2018 and their app has come a long way since. For example, with a simple linking of your Clash Royale account to their app, you are able to battle players without the need of a friend link or a clan invite. My personal favourite feature of the app is the challenge feature, a mode that automatically invites you to battle an opponent up to 10 times per day for, wait for it, real in-app currency that can be exchanged for Amazon, iTunes, Google Play cards, or even just money itself. I believe that Geyser is up there with the best ways to start playing mobile games competitively, and my referral link to the app can be found down below. Please go download and sign up to both support me and Geyser. Thank you lads, I appreciate it. 1 million. Now of my really bad measurements of appreciation. 1 million? How do you appreciate something 1 million? Anyway, my conclusion today for Snowball vs Zap is I actually want to say that both of these spells are fairly balanced. Sure, Zap has the edge in consistent power due to its reliable deployment speed, but Snowball does give you that higher risk, higher reward option. In my opinion, the majority of players are going to find Zap to be the stronger option, but the minority who learn and master Snowball are going to see that spell as stronger. It all depends on your skill level as to which spell you find stronger and should be using. Personally, I don't think either spell needs to have any changes made to it. If you were forcing me to give a balance change, I would possibly make Snowball travel a tiny bit quicker so it's more accessible to every single player in the game, but overall I actually wouldn't want this to happen in the game right now. So yeah, there's my Snowball vs Zap comparison. Let me know down below what you guys think of the two spells, and be sure to vote in the top right of your screen now too. Thank you all for watching lads, I hope you did enjoy today's video, but apart from that, peace.